Welcome everyone, Jason here from Alliance Corp. Got another great video for you. Now this one is all about how those low interest rates have impacted your current situation. I'm referring to your borrowing capacity. So some of you might not know this, but with the lower interest rates, this has bumped up the borrowing capacity for most people, which is allowing them to get into the market, but it also allows you to release some of that equity that you might need to get you through some of these tough times. So the first thing we're going to have a look at now is how do banks lend money. As you can see from your screen, there is a calculator. That's a bank's calculator. They want to know who's borrowing the money. They want to know if you've got dependents, what the purpose of the funds is for. But as you can see on the right-hand side, really what they're interested in is your cash flows. They're looking at your income and they're looking at your expenses. So as interest rates drop, your expenses also drop. So because your expenses are dropping, the banks are prepared to lend you more money. Now they also look at things like job stability, credit history, things of that nature, but really it's all about your cash flows. So here's an example of a client now, as you can see on the screen, who wanted to buy a property not too long ago for around $500,000. But with the higher interest rates, as you can see from the calculator, they would have needed close to about $425,000 because they had a deposit of $75,000, but as you can see from the calculator, they're only able to generate $399,000. Now the only way for them to make up the difference in that scenario is to come up with the additional cash themselves, but that could have taken them an awful long time to save those funds. That same client today can walk into the bank, ask for a lower interest rate, as you've seen in previous videos, as little as 2.8% on some of those fixed rates for investment lending. That means that now they can borrow $470,000. That $470,000 along with their deposit of $75,000 means that they have more than enough to now buy that investment property. So as you can see, those lower interest rates have bumped up this individual's BC by about $70,000. That is really important. This client has a home with a mortgage. They've got an investment property with a loan. In times they're a little bit tougher, it's really important to make sure you have access to funds. So what you can do, in this example, this client has a property worth $500,000 with a loan of $350,000 on their investment property. They've got $150,000 worth of equity. That's the difference between the loan and the value. They can actually release this equity, particularly now that the borrowing capacity has gone up. Now what you would do is release that equity back into your master facility. The master facility is designed to manage all your cash flows. So you always want as much surplus funds in here as possible. You don't want equity sort of locked up in your properties because you can't use it. You have to actually apply to the bank. So when your borrowing capacity is stronger, do that now. You can also do the same thing with your mortgage. If you're concerned about your cash flows, make sure you release some of your equity. You can do it through a redraw facility. You only pay interest on the funds that you use, but at least now you've got some funds available, and again, that provides you with a safety net and gives you some confidence. Now, for those of you who have investment properties, you might also want to look at the cash flows, because now that interest rates have also dropped, some of those properties that were neutrally geared or had neutral cash flows are now quite possibly cash flow positive. For example, you might be generating now $150 a week or more on this property to also supplement your income. For those of you who want to take advantage of the current market, whereby it's now a buyer's market, we can negotiate really good prices on properties. The record low interest rates mean that we're getting a huge amount of cash flow positive income. You might want to replicate this scenario and again replace some of your income by buying another investment property. And in this example, you might buy something similar to this particular property. You'll use the equity that you've pulled out of this investment property, or you could use some equity in your home. And now you might be generating another $150 a week cash flow positive. So between those two properties, you're looking at an additional $15,000 per annum. Okay, so also for those of you that don't have existing properties and you're looking to get into your first, as I mentioned earlier, having a look at those calculators, you now might be able to get into the market and again take advantage of those record low interest rates, the buying power that you now have, the negotiating power that you now have, and generate some additional income streams for yourself. All right, but also for those of you who have equity, make sure you release your equity, because if you release it now, you'll have those funds sitting there in the event that you might need to dip into them to get through these tough times. So guys, my advice is get educated on this stuff. You can book in for one of our complimentary property and finance coaching sessions. What we'll do is we'll review your situation, we'll have a look at your borrowing capacity, your equity position, we'll talk to you about potentially how the banks can help you, and we'll also talk to you about how you can take advantage of the fact that it's a buyer's market and look at getting into the market and generate some additional income streams for yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.